What's up guys, welcome to this review of The Irishman, a story that chronicles the life and times of Frank Sheeran as he rises up through the mob from being a truck driver to being a hitman to eventually working with Teamster Jimmy Hoffa. So in a nutshell, what did I think? I think this film was brilliant. I think it's a masterpiece in fact. It's a really, really good film. It's really well told. It's Martin Scorsese at his best. It feels like this is Martin Scorsese, the film that he's been building his entire career up to. It's the big epic gangster film that he's always wanted to do, it seems. And it looks like he's gave it his A game. Across the board, there's really nothing I didn't like about this film. So yeah, it's epic in scope and epic in length. So yeah, it's a 3.5 hour movie. That's probably the only slight negative I've got about it. But even then, I kind of like the fact that it's 3.5 hours long because it got to tell the story that they wanted to tell. And it feels like it was deserving of that length. And one of the reasons I like that is because it does give the story and the characters the time to breathe and time to actually tell the story that they want. Whereas if it was shorter, you'd have to either pick up the pace a bit and get through things much quicker, or you'd have to cut things out and then you're losing so much depth and so many details here and there. But I also liked how the film balances telling you a crime gangster story with telling you like a political story and then telling you like a family story as well. And that's all about Robert De Niro's character, how he does have these three pillars in his life and he's trying to balance them all out and go from one to the other to the other. It does at times feel a little like a tad too traditional for Scorsese. If you've seen like Goodfellas and Casino, and even The Wolf of Wall Street to an extent, it's very much in the same vein as those. Stylistically, it's very similar. Visually, it's similar. Thematically, it's similar as well. I would say it's a bit more political than any of those films. And yeah, maybe that's a negative, maybe not. But maybe you just want another great Scorsese crime gangster film, in which case that's exactly what you're going to get. So yeah, it might not even be a negative to say that. Speaking of The Wolf of Wall Street though, that is still my favourite Martin Scorsese movie. I don't think this is as good as The Wolf of Wall Street, despite the fact that I said this is a masterpiece. There are really like emotional undercurrents throughout this film as well, about regret, about your life and things you've done and what you would do differently and so on. And it really makes for quite an emotional, impactful ending as well, because you are seeing, without going into too many spoilers, you're seeing essentially his entire life play out, because he is going from being like 20, 30 years old or something to like what seems to be like 80 or 90 or something. I haven't done the maths, so maybe he's not that old, I don't know. There's also some comedy in there, and this is very traditional with Scorsese as well, in that he does have bits of comedy planted throughout his films. Wolf of Wall Street, you could argue, is just a comedy. But this one, the comedy isn't, there's not tons of it, but when they're there, it feels really natural, it feels really suitable, and it fits in really well. It doesn't feel like they're making a joke just for the sake of making a joke. And yeah, I have to praise that as well, because so many films do just have insert a joke in order to get a laugh from the audience. Well, this, it feels like the actual characters in the films are making jokes for the characters in the films, and it works for the audience. But speaking of the characters, this is probably where the film shines most. The characters are really well developed, really likable. Even the horrible characters in the film are really likable, and that's mainly because of, one, the 3.5 hour runtime really gives you a chance to get to know and love these characters throughout the film, and also the acting. The acting is amazing. Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci are all brilliant in this film. It's great to see Joe Pesci back on the screen. He has been retired. This is his first like on-screen appearance, I believe, in like 9 years. And it's brilliant to have him back. I don't know if it's a one-off. I don't know if he's planning on doing more. I hope he kind of is, because he's a brilliant actor and we haven't seen enough of him. But yeah, he's got a very subdued performance here, Joe Pesci. Usually you see Joe Pesci and he's like a little angry guy who's like constantly mouthing off or something. He's done that in Goodfellas, Casino, and in the Home Alone movies. So here he's very, very subdued, very quiet, very subtle in his performance, and it's really him playing against type in a way and showing you that, you know what, he can play loud and obnoxious and then quiet and more thoughtful. So yeah, great performance from him. But the ones that I'm really glad about were Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. This is Al Pacino and Robert De Niro's best film in a long, long time. they've been reduced in recent, I would say in the past 10 years, to like comedies and for Robert De Niro and crime, like straight to DVD crime films for Al Pacino. But once upon a time, these two guys were considered to be like the best actors on the planet. And this film is a reminder of what they can do on screen, both as individuals and together. They're absolutely amazing in this film. I wouldn't be surprised if any of these three lead actors, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, and Joe Pesci, end up getting some sort of Oscar consideration here. And Pacino's character is Jimmy Hoffa, a real person. This is based on a true story. He's a very loud, outspoken guy, very opinionated guy, and it's like he wants things done his way. He's a pain in the backside, but he's also the type of pain in the backside that you can't help but love as well. Of course, some people that's just going to grind up the wrong way, and well, without going into spoilers, that's what happens. He gets on the bad side of some people because of the way that he goes on. Whereas Robert De Niro is very much our eyes and ears into this. At times he's like just a conduit for us to see the world that he's entering. He is very almost taxi driver-ish in a way, in that he's like quiet and he's just taking everything in and he responds when it's necessary. So it is, again, a bit like Joe Pesci. It's a more of a subtle performance from Robert De Niro, and I like that. But even the smaller characters, some of the ones that are just there for like one or two appearances, like Anna Paquin or Harvey Keitel, and then there's a bunch of other familiar names and faces cropping up here and there, they all feel well developed, they all feel real. And again, that might be because of the 3.5 hour runtime gives them the chance to actually develop these characters a bit more than a normal film would. But to touch on the production side of things now, it's Martin Scorsese. This is Martin Scorsese at his best. His directing work here is brilliant. He's got great use of shots, very stylistic shots. Apparently, in order to do certain, well, almost every scene in the film, he shot it with 3 different lenses. So the fact that he's hidden the lenses somewhere is really impressive. It shows that he knows his craft, he knows how to make a film and to get the right angles and moments. There are also some great suspense moments in here, which are executed really well. Great montage moments in there, and I've got to credit the editor there, because a 3.5 hour movie, there are some sequences where they are brushing through things in order to get on with the plot. This is a 3.5 hour movie that doesn't feel like a 3.5 hour movie. It flew by for me, and it's never slow, it's never boring. Everything in there is interesting and engaging, and that's because of the good pacing and the good editing. I also want to talk about the soundtrack and the score a bit. I really like that. It's not in your face all that much. There's nothing like that really stands out too much, and that's good. The fact, but it does. There's like almost like a Western kind of theme in there with strings, and it's really unusual. At first, it's like, oh, that's an odd choice, but it works really well, and I do like it. But of course, this is set in multiple time periods, so there's tons of costumes, tons of different sets, and attention to period detail. It's all really impeccable and immaculate. But one of the big things about this film is the use of CGI, because of course Robert De Niro and Al Pacino are in their 70s, same with Joe Pesci, and they're playing themselves when they're in the 20s and 30s. So how they've done that, they've used CGI to de-age them. This is the best use of de-aging I've ever seen. At first it can be distracting, especially when there are moments in the film when you're not entirely sure how old they're actually meant to be. And because we've seen these actors over many, many years going from young men to now old men, it can be a little odd when their younger, de-aged versions don't quite look like what they actually looked like when they were younger. But that's a minor little thing. The de-aging works really well. It does a good job of actually making them look younger on the face. There are moments when they're topless as well, where they've clearly done some CGI to like their chest and so on. The problem though is that, for the most part, yes, they've got the CGI done to their face to make them look younger, but they've still got the bodies of like 70, 80-year-old men. So there's like one sequence in particular where Robert De Niro, without going into spoilers, is fighting someone. And you can clearly see that the way that he's handling himself, the way that he's moving himself, he's not a young man. And yeah, it's a minor thing. It's one of them things that, yeah, you've just kind of got to overlook a bit. But then there's also sequences where Al Pacino's character, again, not going into spoilers, gets into a bit of a tussle with someone else, and clearly it's not Al Pacino because, well, Al Pacino probably can't move that quick or nimbly anymore, and it's probably too dangerous for a 79-year-old guy to do that. So it's clearly someone in a wig. Again, minor things, but just something that the CGI can't really fix. But it's also a really good script. The dialogue is really, really good. It feels really natural, really realistic, really relatable stuff in there. This is one of the best written things I've probably seen in a long time. Feels like everything's really well thought out. It is based on a book. I don't know how faithful it is to the book. It's also based on real events. But in terms of like from a filmmaking perspective, ignoring like the story and how well the story is told and the characters and so on, from an actual filmmaking perspective, so all the production stuff, the directing, and writing, all that, it's probably one of the best films ever made. That way on. I love this film. I don't know if I'd watch it again. It is 3.5 hours long. Like I said, that's a big chunk of time you've got to put aside to watch this movie. And if you haven't watched it already, I do encourage you to watch it. I'm not going to go into spoilers. Not really got anything else to say in there. I do think you should watch this yourself anyway. So yeah, if you've liked this review, leave comments and feedback down below. Let me know what you thought of The Irishman. And of course, subscribe to my channel. The more subscribers I get, the more content like this I can make. Before I go though, one of the things I want to point out is that The Irishman, now a frontrunner for one of the best films of the year. This is getting a really tough time now to choose what are the best films of this year. First it was like Joker, then The Irishman, Avengers Infinity War, there's a bunch of others as well, some of which haven't even come out in the UK yet. So it's going to be tough for me to decide what's the best film of 2019. This is definitely going to be up there though. But yeah, Twitter and Instagram, follow me on there at @the_Grant Burton. I post comments and stuff all the time over there. Usually I'm posting my thoughts on films and TV shows and whatever long before I can actually get that content onto my YouTube channel. So if you just want them a little quicker, that's where you can go. But yeah, subscribe to my channel, that's most important. And until next time, thanks for watching.